All right, let's get right into it. Today, we are pulling back the curtain on the system that top students use to pull A's without basically living at their desks. This isn't about grinding harder. It's about having a much smarter approach to learning.
You know the feeling, right? We have all been there. You get through an entire chapter, you turn that last page, and poof, it's gone. You remember basically nothing. It's kind of like when you're driving and you just zone out. You somehow get where you're going, but you have zero memory of the trip. Well, that's passive reading, and it is, without a doubt, the biggest time waster for any student.
And that experience really gets to a crucial point. Learning is a two-stage process. First, there's consumption. Reading the book, watching the lecture. But the second stage, the one most people skip, is digestion. That's where you actually process the material, connect it to what you already know, and really understand it. See, most students just try to consume more and more, faster and faster. But the top performers, they know that real, lasting learning only happens during active digestion.
Okay, so first up, you've got to read like a strategist. I mean, think about it. You wouldn't use a screwdriver to hammer in a nail, right? So why on earth would you use the exact same reading strategy for every single subject? A+ students absolutely adapt their approach depending on the material.
So let's see how this actually works. This table breaks it down perfectly. If you're reading a really dense philosophy text, you have to read every single word, probably a few times actually, just to wrestle with the logic. But for history class, where you're assigned an entire book, the strategy is totally different. You're going to read the introduction and the conclusion super carefully, but then just skim the chapters in between. And for a complicated science article, the gold is in the intro, the conclusion, and this is key, the figures and their captions. That's where all the data lives. And let's be super clear here. The whole point of skimming isn't to learn everything on the first pass. It's to build a mental map of the book. That way, when your professor starts talking about, swimming pools in 1890s Philadelphia, a little light bulb goes off and you think, aha, I remember seeing that. That's in chapter 4. Then, after the lecture, you know exactly where to go back and focus your deep dive reading. The lecture literally becomes your treasure map. Now, for the reading you do need to do deeply, you have to try this. It's called the progressive summary method, and it forces that active digestion we've been talking about. It's simple. After each paragraph, you write a one-sentence summary in the margin. But here's where the magic happens. When you get to paragraph 3, you first write a single sentence that summarizes paragraphs 1 and 2 together. Then you summarize paragraph 3. By constantly forcing yourself to synthesize the material as you go, you'll actually remember what you read, which is going to save you hours and hours of cramming later. Okay, so let's shift gears and talk about taking notes. Here's the thing. The goal is not to create a perfect word-for-word transcript of the lecture. Your notes are supposed to be a tool for thinking. Think of it like a gym for your mind. The real key to effective note-taking is to listen, to really understand, and then to summarize the concept in your own words. That's the digestion part again. This active processing is what actually moves information from your short-term awareness into your long-term memory. And, as science has shown again and again, it is so much better to do this by hand.
And look, this isn't just a random opinion. A major study in the journal Psychological Science found that because typing is so fast, students on laptops just tend to transcribe the lecture word for word. That's a super shallow form of processing. It's pure consumption. But writing by hand is slower, which forces you to listen, filter out the fluff, and summarize. That leads to a much deeper understanding of the material.
And the evidence is just crystal clear. You can see it right here on this chart. The performance gap is huge. But honestly, it gets even worse. Using a laptop in class doesn't just distract you. The research also shows that the light and the movement from your screen actually distract the student sitting behind you, and it measurably lowers their test scores too. So really, do yourself and everyone around you a favor and just close the laptop. So you've read like a strategist. You've taken amazing notes. Now what? How do you make all that information memorable? How do you make sure it actually sticks around for the exam? Well, science gives us two incredibly powerful tools for this: mnemonic cues and spaced repetition.
Okay, a mnemonic cue sounds complicated, but it's just a story or a crazy image you create to link two pieces of information. For example, to remember that the Spanish word for bread is pan, you could vividly imagine a giant metal frying pan flying through the air and hitting you in the head with a loaf of bread still inside it. It's weird, right? It's visual, and it is definitely memorable. Our brains are just wired for stories, so the stranger and more vivid the story, the stronger that memory is going to be.
Next up is spaced repetition, which is hands down the most efficient way to memorize facts.
Just picture a stack of flashcards. When you get a card right, you move it to the very back of the pile, so you won't see it again for a while. But when you get one wrong, you stick it back in the middle of the deck, so you'll see it again really soon. This system forces you to spend your precious time on the stuff you don't know, which makes your studying incredibly targeted and efficient.
So now let's put this all together into a complete system. Because these aren't just a bunch of random hacks or tips. They're all interlocking parts of a powerful, efficient system for learning, and they work best when you use them together. And it all comes back to this one simple number: 2. This is the core principle. Learning has 2 stages. Everything you consume has to be balanced by time spent digesting it. So if you spend 3 hours passively reading, you need to balance that with active digestion time, summarizing, connecting ideas, quizzing yourself. Just consuming without digesting, well, it's like overeating. You might feel full, but you end up retaining almost nothing of any real value. So here it is. This is your A+ system. First, you start with strategy. You adapt your reading method to the subject. Second, you process everything actively. You summarize as you go, and you take your notes by hand. Third, you map out concepts to see how all the ideas connect, not just as a boring list. And finally, you memorize scientifically, using tools that actually work with your brain, not against it. You see, this whole system isn't about working harder at all. It's about making the work you do way more effective. It's about getting better grades with a whole lot less stress and actually getting more of your free time back. So the only real question left is, what are you going to do with all that time you save? Thanks for watching.